counts. But nonetheless, to try and put it down in these words, you see it listed here under point 2, these 4 components of training. This CUP, as you can see, ideational learning, learning to practice inner work, learning to be gay-centered, and interpersonal learning. This is simple, basic stuff. You notice that the 2 inner forms of learning are bracketed on the right side to be approached analytically in the felt realness of the moment as informed by Uranian psychoanalytic theory. Those 2 are bracketed not because the other 2 forms of learning are not as aptly approached in the same way, but rather that those 2 inner aspects of the training are the most important ones. Learning to practice inner work as that's approached analytically in the felt realness of the moment and as informed by Uranian psychoanalytic theory, that's the action. And the same thing vis-a-vis being gay-centered, which is to be done simultaneously. So, but once that attitude is in place vis-a-vis practicing inner work and being gay-centered, the interpersonal learning and the ideational learning follow and come from the same attempt to synthesize these positions. As you can be noticing, this is a synthesis of positions which are normally never put together. Who do you know who's gay liberation oriented, who is also psychoanalytic oriented simultaneously and co-equally? I know of no one, nothing, not to mention being Jungian, for example, and being gay-centered. I know of nothing. Okay, so another point then under this B, which is more kind of comment about motivation around all this, that advanced training will be undertaken, inspired and guided by the desire for same-sex romantic love. In case that was not clear, this is not being done merely for some intellectual reason, some professional reason, some exterior reason, or whatever. The interest here is from the interior pull and motivation itself. Fired and guided by the desire for same-sex romantic love. You know, many of us just feel this desire for same-sex romantic love. Maybe that's just what it is. Oh, this desire for sexual romantic love, as if it was like what the breeders experienced. I don't know what they experienced. I don't experience that. But as if it maybe was like that in some kind of mundane kind of thing. But I don't know about you, but I experienced the desire for same-sex romantic love as having amazing dimensions and interpersonal fabulosities to it that not only involve living persons, but also dead people. And I don't mean just boring dead people. And people still to be in the future. Don't even exist yet. Yeah, if there is to be a future, I don't know about that. But it seems that way sometimes in my feelings. Look at the 2 cute little girls watching the show out there. They're entranced by a screaming man. No, they've fingered them, they're leaving. That's just to get rid of it. Love is attractive. Love is attractive. But it's also a fire that burns. Little girl should watch out. So, advanced training will be undertaken, inspired and guided by the desire for same-sex romantic love, which can arouse the wish to become, quote, good to oneself, unquote, psychologically, so as to better justly partner the inner flame of homosexual true love. So picture the reason to get into all this is not for any stupid exterior reason, because of the fire of homosexual love burning in one's own heart. So the proposal here is that getting into this way will burn it even more. This is good burn. You want to have a bonfire. So that's the idea. Being good to oneself psychologically, fired by the desire for homosexual love, will want to cook oneself thoroughly in all the ways. That's what we're interested in harnessing. Not merely going through road education and training, or trying to figure out the books and the reading. No, it's all secondary. There's a real yummy hot number going on here. And that's what we always want to stay close to, because that's what counts. That's what's not boring. That's what's not like breathing at all. Okay? It doesn't lead to that. As we well know from our history and other sources, this homosexual fire thing leads to art and beauty and science and history and all kinds of things that otherwise would never have had. No matter what the breeders say. There's an important reason to be queer. It's not just an accident or folly, you know, or sideshow, by any means. Sorry, I got a little queer. I'll lose my usual straight demeanor, relatively straight demeanor. Okay, so being aroused better with this wish to become good to oneself, you see, we become a self-revealing discovery and transmutation that can then ensue through well enough actualizing that wish, which in turn fuels further motivation. You get the idea what I'm alluding to here becomes a really interesting self-motivating engine. You could ask Chris here, ask Doug, ask Roger, about living with this kind of cultivation of self-motivating engine over the years, what that's done for them, in terms of being gay, in terms of being a living human being, in terms of being emphatic about that, learning how to be. They're trying to be up here, trying to be with the livingness of life, you know, instead of the usual pseudo-versions that pass for that in our culture. And how to cultivate that is what I'm trying to allude to here a little bit. It's a real phenomenon, in my opinion. By phenomenon, I don't mean something special, though it is. I mean something that exists. Even though our culture never fingers this kind of business at all, we want to have a whole, not only institution built on this, a training program built on this, being a kind of person built on this, being a kind of revolutionary built on this. A political action figure. I don't mean a little Arnold Schwarzenegger doll. Father of 1 million babies. Divorced husband. That's the breeders for you. Okay, so let's go on. C, focus of, now we're going to see getting gradually more into defining. So you see point B, statement of contemporary Uranian psychoanalysis didn't really state it. It only said some of what it's not really, and broad aspects of what it does involve, but it doesn't get too particular. Now it's going to get more particular. See, focus of the core training seminar, the core process. So first, definition of the core process, systematically working to increasingly stay partnered with the felt self through reparative struggles in a gay-centered, active imaginational context. That's what the three of us were demonstrating a little bit of, that we've tried to live this way and work this way and think this way for decades now. It's been growing and developing. And that's what we want to egg on with others in this training program, intensified kind of format way. So we get a little bit of a definition there, what is meant by what we're after here. Everyone has, by the way, a core process, but people don't usually pay attention to it. I mean, the process of inner experience in terms of its constant generation of meaning. It's constantly, as symbolic organisms, are constantly being generated anew in meaning for us, whether we want to or not, whether our egos are involved in it or not. We are that way. We're the products of that. And a lot better for us if we learn how to be co-partners with that process rather than mere victims of it. So this is the methodology for turning around the power politics of that. So that we're no longer like the mud, which we evolved from, which is powerless before this great potency, but instead become co-agents with it. Because we can never be more able to influence things than through being partners with this stuff. But also recognizing that, as various spiritual sources say, humanity and divinity have a special connection. The word soul often refers to that. It's a technical word in many languages, also used in various religious contexts and so on. It refers to this notion. If any of us truly felt our gay love experience, we certainly have felt gay spirit, or been felt by gay spirit. No? So, that's being all alluded to here by this core process. How to work to systematically work to increasingly stay partnered with the felt self. What is the felt self? Again, we'll go into that. Through reparative struggles, not just struggles, but reparative struggles. What's all that about, right? In a gay-centered, active imagination. When we talk about gay-centered, we've not touched on active imagination yet very much. The gay-centered, active imaginational context. Active imagination is a Jungian technique. Okay, and you see two definitions of that below that. To be able to, another way of explaining the same thing, to be able to psychodynamically and analytically, meaning in psychoanalytic terms and then in Jungian terms, discern, meaning figure out, and follow, meaning work with one's subjective process, and then work to engage, confront, and address that process affirmatively, constructively, and progressively. Both to understand it and to engage it are two sides of one thing. And then the second set point, to be able to do the same vis-a-vis others who are also attending this process. That's the training program. So you get now a little more refined sense of what this core training seminar is about the individual trainees' practice and the trainers' practice of this core process. How it's going and how to engage with it more, how to deepen that. So you see then the point number 2 under here is it gets into some of the particulars of that deepening. Training consists of skills building and areas of competence and a listing of possible areas For example, so it's not meant to be inclusive, you see just some of them listed here. Comprehension of gay-centered version of Jungian analysis, ideational and theory building, because if you know formal, regular Jungian analysis is not very gay-centered. The practice of gay-centered inner work, aspects and features thereof, for example, introverted tension, being able to tend introvertedly, that's a whole area that Doug was touching on, being able to be more introverted, building the interiority Chris was talking about. Persistence of practicing, the power of dedication and bravery, how one can keep working to stay with working with it, is itself a whole skill area. Reframing capacity in working with self-practice. Reframing means how to look at things in different ways. And as you well know, how one looks at things has an enormous effect on the outcome. It not only affects what one sees, but way even more than that, it's a big effect on why one is seeing things to begin with. So the capacity, not really even just one capacity, really reframing capacities are a whole important area of skills building. And then issue analysis and working with self-practice. What are the issues going on? What are the matters going on? How to identify them? How to get better at identifying them? How to not be bamboozled by the cleverness of the defenses, by the difficulty of dissociation, and so on and so forth. That's all a kind of area that is being alluded to in that as well. So then interpersonal engagement and struggle and self-practice development. How, while trying to work with one's inner process in a self-engaging way, do that with others as well. Interpersonal engagement and struggle. It gets its whole subsection later on. Then the whole topic of feltness, which is a very broad word here, it actually includes many things, as you can see. The capacity for feltness has many dimensions, so you can see aspects of it here listed: emotion, which is distinguished from sensation, which is distinguished from the receptivity, which is a kind of function, though emotion and sensation can be seen as functions or as content. Receptivity is more process. I'm just throwing a few of the aspects here together. There are many dimensions. For example, just with our emotion or sensation, we might differentiate many degrees and aspects of emotion and sensation in the world of feltness, depending on ways you might want to understand that, according to the dimensions of the brain function, historical dimensions, either personally or in other ways. There are a variety of ways to layer out degrees and aspects and features of emotion and sensation that involve the capacity for feltness, or will be involved in the capacity for feltness, especially as that's being attended to and cultivated. The next point, as you can see, is an expansion on the last one. Working with self-feltness in relational context. That's because that one in particular is so important. Working with self-feltness in relational context. First of all, relations with oneself. How does one work with this issue or dynamic of the challenge to develop a more wholesome or healthy or developmental feltness in oneself vis-a-vis one's own issues, and then, as you see, relations with others as well, for example, one's therapist or the other trainees in the program. And then you see even a further development of that, even though it doesn't use the word feltness anymore, it's still a further differentiation of the same topic. Relationally engaging the trauma self according to its object relations themes. Chris and Doug and some of myself were also mentioning a bit of that this evening as we were up here, hopefully to show a little more. And this is broken down to two subheadings really. Training and practice in discerning the object relations, patterns, and issues, and their analysis in self and others, and then training and practice in the ability to struggle with the issues analytically in self and others. Analytically doesn't mean that the way Chris and Doug might have been confronting each other is analytical or not analytical. It means some of the ways they were talking about this stuff has analytical aspects to it. That's why I'm using the word analysis here. These are specifically used words, by the way, even if I don't get into all the details of how that's so here. There's no need to do that. But it is so. This is not just thrown together, in other words, or it's merely a bunch of words. This is extremely carefully thought out stuff, just to let you know. As we touch on it right here, just to format things and contextualize and structure what we're going to be doing. And you then see point number 3 under this C area is again a kind of summary statement of the whole business up to this point. In the training program, interrelational developments are modeled and encouraged, meaning inner insight, the experience of subjectivity. Interrelational developments are modeled and encouraged through commensurate interpersonal relations. This is the whole notion that what's inside of us is mirrored in what's the experience outside of us, as well as the experience outside is mirror what's inside. What's what is how to differentiate them as part of the big issue here. But nonetheless, that's what's being worked with in this description here, or thus in the group. Interrelational developments are modeled and encouraged through commensurate interpersonal relations in the context of addressing personal experience and material concerning enhanced gay self-development as undertaken within an educational Uranian psychoanalytic framework. So here